Being one of the most celebrated game series of all time, Mario has been on a lot of adventures. From stopping Bowser from stealing Peach, all the way to stopping a hostile planetary takeover, he'll always race into danger to save the day. And throughout all these risky heroics, there are villains who make Mario's life a living nightmare. So, which of these villains are the worst of the bunch? Hey guys, it's me, Brad with One Up Binge, and today we're taking a trip around the Mushroom Kingdom to see which villains are the most friendly and which are the most corrupt and cruel. Before heading out, we're gonna have to make some rules, because if we include every Mario game, spinoff, and so on, this list will be longer than getting all the Power Moons in Super Mario Odyssey. First off, we're only going to be counting villains who debuted in a Mario title. For example, we're going to count Donkey Kong because of his role in the Mario vs. Donkey Kong series, but we're not including King Rool. However, for our second rule, we are going to be counting any deeds they do outside the official Mario series, so Donkey Kong's good deeds will also be counted. First up, we have a duo of good guys. These two are heroes and are only villains in a small number of games, with their heroic antics greatly outnumbering their crimes. We're putting them here just to check off all the boxes. First, we have a face that you might have forgotten was a villain at one point, but we didn't. That face is none other than the main man himself, Mario. No, we're not talking about the idea that Mario was actually a brother-hating animal terrorist who cheats on Peach based on cherry-picked evidence taken out of context. No, we're talking about the time where he was a legit villain in Donkey Kong Jr. Here, he is following through on the events of the first game and has Donkey Kong in a cage and is planning on shipping him somewhere. Could be back to the jungle, could be putting him in a zoo, we really don't know. This is from a time where the story wasn't as prominent. In fact, its predecessor, the original Donkey Kong, was one of the first arcade games to include any kind of story. Speaking of the original, we can't blame Mario for what he's doing. Donkey Kong started off kidnapping Pauline and trying to escape Mario. And in Donkey Kong 3, he still is a villain, bullying Stanley by ruining his flowers by disturbing insects. It's hard to argue that Mario should just let Donkey Kong run loose. There is one theory though, that Mario actually used to abuse Donkey Kong by keeping him in a cage and made him perform in the circus. That said, this is something that falls under the umbrella of it being more acceptable in the past than it is now. Sure, nowadays such practices are shady and animal circuses are banned, but back then it was more socially acceptable and common practice. Plus, with how many times his story got retold, this detail seemed to be forgotten and lost. Heck, the only reason we know about this story is from an interview by Miyamoto. The original doesn't mention this, not even on the arcade box. Other versions of the game, like the Game Boy remake, have Mario make peace with Donkey Kong in the end, and make no mention of this circus life. Even then, all this isn't taking into account that Mario is a hero now. You all know his good deeds, rising up to the challenge to save the kingdom from dangerous threats, from princess stealing turtles to an alien army aiming to annihilate the entire planet, or venturing out to stop the multiverse from being destroyed. He's pretty much done it all. Even if he was bad before, and with how dodgy the story is, that's still a huge question mark the size of a mega mushroom, he has more than redeemed himself. We all know Mario is a hero. And for our second hero with the small villainous side, we have the king of swing, Donkey Kong. This isn't the same Donkey Kong as the original Donkey Kong. We'll get to him later. Rather, he is the successor and is the hero of the Donkey Kong Country games. We all know he's a hero, but where is his villainous side? The Mario vs. Donkey Kong games. Here, he's someone who wants some mini Mario toys, and when they're sold out, resorted to stealing them. It's a crime, but hardly the worst. But he's more dangerous in the second game, March of the Minis, kidnapping Pauline after she ignored his mini Donkey Kong toy, and at the end of the game, is remorseful for his actions. Afterwards, he became a good friend of Pauline, though he kidnaps her a couple of more times. 2 out of the 3 times he kidnapped her were planned with Pauline, be it to test the mini Marios or to lead Mario to a surprise party. Aside from his anger issues, Donkey Kong is a good guy. Up next, we have 3 entries in the redeemed category. These 3 either regretted their actions in the past, became better people, or helped the heroes enough to be redeemed in our eyes. For our original Donkey Kong, that title will go to our best non-hero villain, Cranky Kong. This was the Donkey Kong that once kidnapped Pauline, and later made a mess for Stanley in his greenhouse. He was more active in his younger years, but now he's retired and content, letting his grandson take up his mantle. even if he is a hero. When he moved to Donkey Kong Island, he was at constant war with the Kremlings, with them going to college to learn how to beat the Kongs. Now in his old age, he's more inclined to sit on the sidelines, giving advice to his grandson and his friends. He's also willing to either help brew new potions for Donkey Kong or sell him stuff. In the latest Donkey Kong game, he joins Donkey Kong and fights alongside him. Of course, anyone who played Donkey Kong Country will tell you, Cranky Kong got his name for a reason, and that's because he is, cranky. He's always ranting about how things were better during his time, and how he could have easily outperformed Donkey Kong and his friends in his heyday. However, make no mistake, this ape, though old and cranky, still cares for his family, and is definitely more a hero now than before. Our second of the three redeemed villains is Count Bleck. First kidnapping Peach and Bowser, he would force them to marry each other in order to create the Chaos Heart, a weapon powerful enough to destroy all of existence and all dimensions. Of course, Mario heads off to stop this heinous plan, collecting the pure hearts throughout the story to counteract this heart. But what caused Count Bleck to do such a terrible thing? It's a long story, told in between the chapters of the game. First being called Lord Bluemere, he was once a guardian of the Dark Prognosticus, stealing it with the Tribe of Darkness in order to ensure that its dark powers won't be used for evil. During his travel with the tribe, he came across a lady by the name of Timpani, who helped him feel better after he fell off a cliff. The two formed a romantic connection, with Count Bleck even getting ready to run off with her, only for Bluemere's father to cut their love short by sending Timpani to a faraway land and turning her into a pixel, with her new name being Tippy. Distraught, he turned to open the Dark Prognosticus to get back at his father. However, he was placed under the book's spell and became much crueler than anticipated, with the book influencing him to change his goal to the complete erasure of all worlds. This is a reasonable explanation for Count Bleck doing what he does in the game. He was not of sound mind. Even then, he is a decent boss. He's never mad with his minions and doesn't punish them, and offers them to leave if they don't like his plan of destroying the multiverse. When he realizes that Timpani is still alive, he wants to stop his plans. But alas, he has gone too far and can't stop everything at once. He wishes for Mario and his friends to beat him in his final fight. This isn't just for show either. He willingly sacrifices himself by finally marrying Timpani, counteracting a final attempt at destroying the multiverse. For as much grief as he caused, he was in just as much himself and was willing to make up for it. We have yet another paper-based villain, or rather, origami, with King Ollie. First created by a toad, he found out that this toad scribbled something onto his body and was distraught by the news. Reasonable enough, right? Well, he decided to take revenge by creating an origami army, forcing the paper residents into origami to serve him, and taking over the Mushroom Kingdom, and planning on making 1,000 paper cranes so he can make a wish to erase every toad in existence. That's significantly less reasonable. And this isn't taking into account him nearly killing Olivia, his sister. Might we add, forcing Bobby to kill himself to save her, and even using Peach's body as a decoration for his castle. His goal may be smaller than Count Bleck, but his actions were more cruel than his. Alright, so how was he redeemed? After his defeat, Olivia read to Ollie the message that was written on him. Said message was about how the toad that created him wanted Ollie to be a fair and kind king. And obviously he failed. In his last moments, Ollie realized how foolish his actions were and requested for Olivia to fold his body into the last origami paper crane to undo his mess. His hatred was irrational, but he was sad about his actions and wanted to make up for it to undo everything, apologizing as he passed on, meaning that he barely scraped by into the redeemed side. If he didn't die without apologizing, you would definitely be seeing him way lower on the list. Our next section is the wild cards. These faces can either be friend or foe, depending on the game and circumstances you meet them under. First up for these wild cards, we have the quite literally dreamy Wart. His only major role was in Super Mario Bros. 2, and by that we mean the American version, which is just a Doki Doki Panic reskin, not the hard Japanese NES game of the same name. He may not be a Mario villain at first, because he was essentially an official Nintendo ROM hack of another game. Since Nintendo is treating this game as the official American Super Mario Bros. 2, we're counting him as one. He's the Frog King of Subcon and is capable of creating monsters with his Dream Machine, using his army to take over the world, or in this case, the Dream World. Standard villain stuff, right? Well, it's gonna get complicated, as we'll have to look at Link's Awakening. Yeah, I know this isn't a Mario game, but bear with us. In this game, plenty of references to past Mario foes appear, with one of them being Wart, going under his Japanese name Mamu. Here, he's actually a nice and decent guy, teaching Link a song to help him on his quest. Given how both games deal heavily with dreams, and how Wart is a product of these dreams, it raises questions about his morality, making him an easy pick for this gray area. Up next, we have a foe who predates Bowser, Foreman Spike. Way back on the NES and Wrecking Crew, he was the boss of Mario, hiring him to take down a building. However, for some unknown reason, he sees it fit that he impede the very job he set them out to do. This was way back in the NES, mind you, so any real logical reasoning for his actions weren't thought of as important, and the focus was just more on the gameplay. Him trying to stop the same work he hired others to do is possibly an attempt at giving the crew a bad name. Another lesser-known foe is not for Mario specifically, but for Toad, namely Dragodon. To the dragon, Toad is just another person who trespassed into his lair, and considering just how much coins and treasure he has, it's safe to say that he doesn't want to lose them. However, he also isn't afraid to help out Toad or Toadette after losing to them. He also makes an appearance in Color Splash, eager to eat Mario or aid him in exchange for a Magma Burger. He can be friend or foe depending on how he's feeling in the moment. Getting to some of the more well-known nasties in the kingdom, we have the greediest of the bunch, Wario. The anti-Mario, he's here to prove that he's the better Mario, taking over his castle and hypnotizing the residents of the land into attacking him. As time went on, he became less evil and more greedy. He's a powerhouse who specializes in treasure hunting, looking for gold and riches, and not afraid of anything that threatens him. To him, treasure is number one, and being a good guy is just something that happens by accident. He stops great threats to the world, like the Shake King in Wario Land, Shake It, and Tiramisu and Master of Disguise, but he was already going to do that just to get some money. In Super Mario 64 DS, he helps Mario, Luigi, and Yoshi save Peach without any monetary reward. He has his moments, like making sure a black cat that was following him in Wario Land 4 was saved. He's most friendly in the WarioWare games, valuing all his employees as friends, just as long as they don't ask him about their salaries. He even treasures them to the point of leaving his door unlocked, just so they can come inside whenever they want. He's greedy and will do whatever to make some cash, but as long as money's out of the picture, he's surprisingly a chill guy. Next up for our wild cards, we have the ever-so-curious Birdo. Birdo debuts in Super Mario Bros. 2, helping Wart keep his control over Subcon. Here, Birdo was actually a male who just wanted to be a girl. The games tend to bounce back and forth with what Birdo's preferred pronouns are, but the one thing more confusing than that can of worms is her morality. She started out helping Wart keep his rule, but eventually, she appears in other games with a more friendly attitude. She helps Toad in Wario Woods and aided Princess Peach by disguising as her in Superstar Saga. However, she can also just as easily be a foe, like with her sudden appearance in Super Mario RPG, or teaming up with Popo later on in Superstar Saga, fancying herself as his lover. She is rather flirtatious, even flirting with Mario. Truly, one of Mushroom Kingdom's more eccentric characters. At the bottom of our wildcard category is Wario's partner, Waluigi. At first, he was just a Luigi to Wario, with his name literally being Bad Luigi. We get some brief acknowledgement to this, with the two being teamed up in sports games and training under Bowser. As time went on, however, Wario expanded and had his own adventures, while Waluigi was left on the sideline. He still helps Wario out, like helping Wario dig up an old tennis racket that was said to be super powerful. Most of the time, he's petty and mean. However, there was one time where he was the main threat of the kingdom, and that is DDR Mario Mix. Here, he stole the keys in the game to become the universe's best dancer, just so he can use his incredible dancing to hypnotize others into letting him take over the world. It's a convoluted approach, but it is a bid for the world nonetheless, and unlike Wario, who at least has good deeds, be it for money or just because, Waluigi has no such outings to prove himself. Finally, we arrive at the actual Mario villains, the true threats. These are either the most recurring villains in Mario's universe, or the most dangerous. This section is where most of the cast lies, even with our rules. So buckle up, folks, it's gonna be a long boss rush. First, we have the original villain of Yoshi's Island, Kamek. First trying to kidnap the baby versions of Mario and Luigi, he tries to take them to baby Bowser's castle, seeing the future for his baby as someone who always lost to Mario and Luigi. Wanting to avert this for his baby, he plans to kidnap them to prevent them from beating Bowser in the future. Despite these villainous goals, he's just doing this to get the best for his child. He cares about not only Bowser's health, but also watches over Bowser Jr., even giving him sound advice throughout Bowser Jr.'s journey to help him grow. He views Bowser as a son and Bowser Jr. as a grandson and wants to make sure they're happy, even if they're villains and constantly harassing the kingdom. He's a good parent, it's just that his goals aren't that heroic. Up next is the son, Bowser Jr. Being Mario's enemy ever since Sunshine, his goal is to beat him and kidnap Peach, all because his father told him how he keeps losing to Mario. Truthfully, while he is happy to join his father on attempts to kidnap Peach, he also wants to have friends, even befriending a paper version of himself in Paper Jam when Bowser and Kamek didn't trust their paper versions. He views the Koopa Troop and Bowser as friends and family, looking up to them and wanting to do them proud. Even if they are bad guys, he will stick with them. He's concerned for them, apologizing to the Koopalings for acting so rough in his side mode, Bowser Jr.'s Journey, and scared for his father's safety in Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle, and in Bowser's Fury, teaming up with Mario and the latter to help him get under control. After he kidnaps Spawny in Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle, he worries for him, fretting for his life after he falls from a cliff and giving him to Peach in the end of the game. He's just a kid that wants the best for his family. It's just that his family is evil. From one turtle enemy to 7, the Koopalings. And no, we're not counting them all separately. Guys, this list is so long. Seriously, it's because they're all similar. This group is made up of Larry Koopa, Morin Koopa Jr., Wendy O. Koopa, Iggy Koopa, Roy Koopa, Lemmy Koopa, and Ludwig von Koopa. Their goal is to fight with Bowser out of sense of loyalty, be it just because they want to or if they are his children. It changes on a game-by-game basis. Regardless, they commit villainous deeds in the name of Bowser. From transforming kings into animals and leading invasions, they are threats even if they love Bowser as much as Bowser Jr. Up next, we have Wingo. This treasure-hungry bird loves shiny objects, like coins and power stars. After seeing one that Toad and Toadette found, he swoops in to steal it from them, stealing Toadette as well, forcing Toad to chase after him to get her back. After that adventure, he steals another power star the duo found, kidnapping Toad as well this time. At first, you could say that he was just doing it because they got in the way, which is fair enough. He could have just seen the star and not noticed them clinging onto it. But at the end of the second book, he kidnaps Toadette and attacks Toad. And at the start of the third book, Wingo steals a star from Toad, laughing at him while doing so. Once is an accident, twice is a coincidence, and thrice is on purpose. He tricks Toadette into letting her get more treasure, letting her go, and letting her think he accidentally dropped her, only to kidnap her again. For as little as we see of him, he makes it clear he doesn't care about Toad or Toadette, and only wants riches. Somehow he makes Wario look like the better man. Finally, it's Bowser. You've seen Bowser do it all these days. He's been a threat to the Mushroom Kingdom, kidnapping Peach and trying to make her his wife, and as the savior of the world, defeating Fawful and the Dark Star, even if he was just angry at them for stepping on his turf. He's gone from viewing Mario as an enemy to saving him in Mario Super Sluggers and teaming up with him in Paper Mario the Origami King to stop King Ali. One thing that we have to give him credit for is that his followers support him, and not because they're scared of him. His troops respect him, with him returning that respect. Anyone that walks away from being a villain is just as valued as a regular supporter in his eyes, with Bowser wishing rogue soldiers good luck with their new lives in Super Mario RPG. He's also a proud father to his son. He attacked the Mushroom Kingdom because his son got hurt, since he was keeping the book with the paper rolled inside away from Mario, and he saved Bowser Jr. from folded soldiers in Origami King. He definitely has some good traits. It's just that he's always a threat to the kingdom. From a recurring threat to a small-time threat, up next is Tatanga. First introduced in Super Mario Land, his goal was to take over Princess Daisy's kingdom, Sarasa Land. Hypnotizing her subjects, he plans on forcing her into marrying him. Of course, Mario quickly put an end to that, leading to Tonga to retaliate by helping Wario guard one of the 6 golden coins that belonged to Mario's castle. After Mario defeated him, that was all we heard of him, and he vanished from Nintendo's lineup. I mean, Wart made a more recent appearance than him, being in the Link's Awakening remake. He hasn't been seen since the Game Boy era, and it's unknown if you'll ever see him again. Up next is one of the more well-known workers for Bowser, King Bob-omb. Thanks to the power of the star given to him, this king has taken over Bob-omb Battlefield, claiming the land for himself and his troops. As Mario's first foe in Super Mario 64, his role is to teach the player how 3D spaces work, and as such, is one of the more polite members on this list. He insists on having a fair fight, with his attacks being him throwing Mario in the original game and using bomb bombs for Yoshi in the DS version. Even after being beaten by the player, he's still respectful, even if he is arrogant about his mustache. In Paper Jam, he gets more destructive. Wanting to keep the secret where all the paper terrain is coming from, he tries to self-destruct to destroy all the evidence, potentially harming not only the Mario brothers, but also his own workers, which is what drops him so low on our list. Here comes the bride, the Broodals. These 4 wedding planners, Topper, Spewart, Rango, and Harriet, were hired by Bowser to steal famous attractions from around the world to use in his wedding on the moon. Their boss, Madame Brood, gets in the way as well, even if they know that Bowser and Peach's wedding were less than ideal. It's just their job, but they're too dedicated to that job. From stealing a priceless artifact from the Sand Kingdom to kidnapping a living ghost crown, they cause a lot of worldwide incidents. That said, we're sure that their constant attempts at killing Mario shouldn't be a part of any wedding planner's resume. In fact, the world seemed to agree, because apparently, after the end of the main game, causing a global incident and letting everyone in the world see them at their worst, made it so that they not only lost their jobs, but are unlikely to be hired again. This leads them to wanting to get revenge on Mario at the end, showing that they learned nothing. 1 out of 5 stars. Wouldn't recommend. Up next, we have 3 very noticeable members of Bowser's forces. The Elite Trio, Private Goomp, Corporal Powerplonk, and Sergeant Guy are a gang that works for Bowser. At first, they seem to be on his side, helping him fight back against Fawful. However, once Bowser's guard was down, they betrayed him, sending him to Fawful for a reward. They're more on Fawful's side than Bowser's. They try to plant a bomb on the Koopa Cruiser. Unlike the other members of Bowser's army, they don't believe in treating others fairly or respecting Bowser, and only came back to him because Fawful was defeated. While Bowser may have shrugged their antics off, the rest of the army didn't, and for very good reason. Their fates of being used as Bowser Jr.'s training partners were well deserved. Up next, we have the oddest plant in the kingdom, Petey Piranha. He debuted in Super Mario Sunshine, pouncing on Mario and spreading his goop around the village. After his defeat, he would take a break from being in the main games, only appearing in side games. However, he would later return in Partners in Time, and not only aiding the homicidal Shroobs, but he was about to eat Princess Peach, a friendly photographer, and a baby had no one stepped in. Anyone that's willing to eat a baby is pretty terrible. Up next is the first foe in the Mario and Luigi line, Cackletta. First appearing as ambassador of the Bean Bean Kingdom in disguise, she stole Peach's voice with Fawful and planned on using it on the Beanstar by using Peach's voice to grant her wish of taking over the kingdom. One problem, Peach was alerted to this plan ahead of time and used Birdo as a decoy to make sure that the star wouldn't be used by her. After getting mortally wounded by the Mario brothers, Fawful put her soul inside Bowser's body, becoming Bowletta. The original gender transformed Bowser before Bowsette happened. This allowed her to not only get control of Bowser's castle to destroy the Bean Bean Kingdom, but also trick Bowser's subjects into serving her. It takes getting inhaled by her and having the Mario brothers face off against her soul before they could claim victory. This fiend is definitely a persistent and hostile witch. Next, we have Smithy, the leader of the Smithy Gang. He causes destruction to Star Road, stopping wishes from coming true. He's a forger who created most of the enemies and bosses we face throughout the game, and he doesn't care about them. Of course, since he made them by himself, to him, they're replaceable people he could build. He came into the Mushroom Kingdom not only to take over the world, but to create a world filled with weapons and hopelessness. He's also easy to agitate, hurting his workers if he's angry. Be ready for a nightmare because up next, we have the Bat King, Phantasma. the villain of Dream Team. This boogeyman was once a regular bat, but when he fed off nightmares, he slowly turned into his current form. Stealing the Dark Stone to conquer the world and spread nightmares to all, he was stopped and imprisoned in the Dream World. However, as one last act, he shatters the Dark Stone and practically destroys a civilization, until Mario and Luigi showed up. Teaming up with Bowser later, he helps him steal Peach in order to continue his original plan, only for him to be betrayed by Bowser in the very end, leaving him at the mercy of Mario, Luigi, and Dreambird. Even then, this master of nightmares still stood his ground and was willing to fight them to the death. He may be a villain, but we have to respect him not going down without a fight. Up next is the troublesome Fawful. Originally Cackleta's pupil, deep down, he always felt like he was meant for bigger things than just being a lackey. After her defeat, Fawful went underground, using beans that the baby Mario brothers gave him in exchange for badges to help finance his plans. These plans came forth in Bowser's Inside Story, where he takes center stage, infecting the Mushroom Kingdom with the Blorbs virus. Very topical today, I know. He gets his own minion in the form of Midbus, showing how far he came. He even cares about him, be it out of not wanting him to grow hatred for him like he did with Cackleta. Regardless, it's one of his very minor good traits. His goal is to use the Dark Star to destroy the kingdom. Not take over, destroy. Even after failing, he tries to use his remaining power to blow up the Mario Brothers. That failed too, but for his willingness to go down and try to take the Mario Brothers with him, it adds to his list of bad deeds and drops him this low on our ranking. His fury was well heard and received. Now to a more serious villain, the Shadow Queen is up next, the main threat in the Thousand-Year Door. It was sealed away 1,000 years ago, in fear of its power and desire to take over the world and drown it in darkness. Thanks to Grottis freeing her, she not only kills him immediately, but also possesses Peach to continue her scheme of world domination. This is one of the more serious villains in the Mario universe, being the very cause that started the adventure in the first place. She's essentially a god, only defeated thanks to the crystal stars weakening her to let Mario attack her. Because of the mayhem she caused prior to being sealed up and how quickly she is to get back at it, her imprisonment and spot on this list were both very well earned. Reaching the top 5, we have the Megabug. This threat is a virus that was spawned thanks to the Rabbids playing around in a lab. This creation is the vortex that dropped all the Rabbids inside the Mushroom Kingdom, causing the Rabbids to run amok and fight against the heroes. It remains out of the way for most of the game, only growing in the background. However, once the team reaches the second half of the lava pit, it possesses Bowser and becomes a threat. It wants the complete destruction of both the Rabbids universe and the Mario universe. Just outside the top 3, we have the Dark Star, the artifact that Fawful stole. It was sealed away because it was evil. It was made of pure evil and malice. Even in the Mushroom Kingdom, nobody knows its origin, only that it's pure evil. When Fawful tried to use it on himself, the Dark Soul went haywire and fleed into Bowser's mouth, copying his DNA to become Dark Bowser, with plans to continue his goal of destroying the world. He plans on making all the residents vanish in a dark hurricane. It has nothing but a desire to destroy everything, and had it not been for Bowser and the Mario Brothers, it could very well do that. And you thought only Kirby had to deal with planet-destroying threats. Mario is no stranger to that. The Bronze Medal of Evil is not Mario's enemy, but Luigi's, King Boo. His first outing in Luigi's mansion has him creating a fake mansion for Mario and Luigi to check out, kidnapping Mario, and being seemingly ignorant to Luigi at first. It's only when he realizes that Luigi not only beat his fellow Boo subjects does he show dismay, calling them his friends before challenging Luigi to one last fight. In the sequels, his anger is squarely centered on Luigi. In his first attack against Luigi, he breaks the Dark Moon to drive the peaceful ghost crazy, and when Luigi is close to repairing it, opens up a ghost portal that could destroy the universe, all just to kill him. He's gotten more bloodthirsty since his first defeat, and his hatred for Luigi only grew. In Luigi's Mansion 3, King Boo shows a complete distaste for Helen Gravely, even after she helped him escape. All he can think about is killing Luigi, willing to trap the entire hotel in a painting just to get Luigi in there as well. He's a ghost filled with vengeance. With the silver medal, we have the last entry for the Mario and Luigi series, the Shroobs. And yeah, we're counting the entire race, from Princess Shroob, Elder Princess Shroob, and all their subjects. They're a race of aliens that only know of one thing: destruction. Like, one of their catchphrases actually means destroy. They commit horrible acts throughout the game, from destroying a town that was celebrating Christmas, feeding Peach the Petey Piranha, and taking over the entire Mushroom Kingdom. They're a force that's literally out of this world. Coming from a planet that is just about dead, they came to the Mushroom Kingdom to continue spreading their species, and also their rampage and damages. The species plans on destroying the entire planet. We also don't know if this is the first time that they did this. It's likely that other planets fell to them. Due to how close they were with their goals and how dangerous said goal was, that being planetary genocide, they rank as the second worst threat Mario faced. For the worst of the worst, the gold medal goes to Dementio. If Count Bleck was hesitant about his goal and had to be broken by the Dark Prognostic's power to go for multiverse genocide, Dementio is the exact opposite. He'll destroy every single universe and speck of life. If you talk with Carson enough, it's even implied that Dementio may have had a hand in writing the Dark Prognostic itself, meaning he was plotting on destroying the multiverse from the word go. His actions only further show how careless he is of others, seeing both the heroes and villains as pawns to further his own goal. Even when he joined Count Bleck's army, he always planned on overtaking him to reshape the entire universe to his own image. He's been pulling the strings to ensure that everything falls in place, from carrying out the events described in the Dark Prognostic, to even being willing to destroy the entire multiverse after he dies just to be spiteful. He has done plenty of vile deeds in order to get the job done. However, perhaps the most shocking one was him casually murdering Mario, Peach, and Bowser in one fell swoop. The heroes even woke up in the underwear, the game's version of the underworld. In just a snap of his fingers, Dementio did what no other Mario baddie managed to do: kill not only Mario, but the princess and Bowser. That alone is insane. He also kills a brainwashed Luigi, thinking he's Mr. L, to free him of his original hypnosis and to, once again, brainwash him into serving him. This is probably the closest villain that Mario faced who's a sociopath and doesn't care who's in his way. He'll exploit Count Bleck's feelings to use up the pure hearts so he can claim the Chaos Heart all for himself. He's always smiling when causing misery. He's making jokes at others' expense, kills the main heroes, backstabs when he's done using people. His goal is to at the very least become a god of a new multiverse to rule as he sees fit, and is definitely not mentally stable to do so. It's obvious that this jester is no joke, and deserves the gold medal for being the vilest Mario villain. Alright guys, what do you think? Let us know who you think the most ruthless and evil villain is in the Mario franchise. Be sure to hit that notification bell and binge our Good to Evil playlist, where we break down the morality of the characters in your favorite video games. But most importantly, stay wicked.